Hello, I am Brad Mackey, Director of Adult Faith Formation and Outreach here at St. Ignatius, and this is episode 8 of Family Become What You Are. So if you've not seen previous episodes, you might want to check them out. They are linked on the same webpage as this one. And so last week I offered a little reflection on parents as primary educators. So we know this is true, that just from experience, the church's teaching connects with it, that parents, while they may not teach every subject to their children or need to, they are really the first teachers, the primary educators of their children, and we really shape the educational disposition of our children. So last week I reflected on also what it means to be childlike. We talked about wonder, receptivity, and joy of learning. So today I promised I would give a concrete suggestion on what you could do for 10 minutes a day and to live this out. So we know that children really absorb the environment and the people around them. And that's one of the main reasons parents are the primary educators, is just that part of that reality, in addition to the natural bond and natural connection that we have with our children. So how could we as parents how can we model wonder and receptivity and the joy of learning? How can we establish free time and rest for scholae to unfold, that restful learning? That's the word where school comes from. How can we build in time and rest for scholae to unfold in our family life? How can we regularly bond with our children? And even a secondary goal or kind of outcome of this, how can we even prepare our children for the ACT or the SAT without is like a lifelong preparation for that? So the answer to all of those questions is to read a book aloud every night. So that's what you could do for 10 minutes a day, is each night read one children's storybook, children's literature, read one book each night. So my wife read this book and she was telling me about it. Hopefully you can see it. And there's a quote in here that struck me, which is, sorry, my phone's ringing, which is a quote from a guy named Tom Parker. He is the admissions director of Amherst College, which is a small, prestigious college in the United States. And as an admissions director, he tells parents this: the best SAT preparation course in the world is to read to your children in bed when they are little. Eventually, if that's a wonderful experience for them, they'll start to read themselves. And it goes on to say that Parker told the author that he's never met a student with high verbal SAT scores who wasn't a passionate reader, and nearly always they recall being read to. And it goes on to talk about how continuing to read to our children, even after they can read themselves, is really key. So that would really be a secondary kind of offshoot, secondary goal of reading to our children out loud. But it really establishes an opportunity to bond with our kids, to have a restful experience with our children, and to teach them wonder, joy of learning, and receptivity, to be childlike ourselves. And then as we model that, they pick up on it because they just absorb. Children learn mostly about absorption of their environment, which includes the people around them. So in my own family life, I might have mentioned that we have 3 daughters and one child we trust is in heaven with God. So we have 3 daughters, ages 7, 4, and 2. And I read to them almost every night, at least the older 2, the 7-year-old and 4-year-old. And so I've actually come to enjoy this myself. Is like this time to kind of quiet and calm and connect. And my favorite book of all time has become The Oxcart Man by Barbara Cooney. So illustrated by Barbara Cooney. So that would be worth checking out. So also Pope Francis has spoken about the need for story in our life and how story, being part of a story and learning stories, is like an essential part of being human and being Christian. And really the books we choose don't have to be explicitly religious, and they don't have to be written And they don't have to be children's stories that were written to tell an explicit point or a lesson. And honestly, preferably not, because in my experience, the story usually suffers when it's just trying to communicate a point and fabricates a story around that point. The literature tends to suffer. But rather, good literature, whether it's Christian or not, tends to embody themes, rich themes of truth, goodness, and beauty. And those themes kind of come out in the story and children absorb them. It's not on this rational level of sort of debate or something like that, but rather the child absorbs them into their soul. This is why we, just like this is the theology of the body program we use for the primary grades that Mrs. Geckel does with the younger kids. The Rua Woods Theology of the Body program uses children's literature, and it just draws those themes out related to the theology of the body, which is really beautiful because then the children pick it up by osmosis. It's just in them. And I've come to see how stories really shape the inner life of a child, the affections, the desires, the interests, and the imagination. In fact, speaking of story, funny story, this was maybe, I think, a year and a half ago in the summer. My one daughter likes to dig holes in our yard. She likes using the shovel and playing the dirt. And I was kind of tired of, putting the holes back and planting grass seed and that kind of thing. So I told her not to do it anymore. So one day I'm sitting on my back patio swinging, or swinging chair, reading a book. And and my daughter kept telling me something, and she wanted to tell me something. I said, well, wait till I'm finished with this chapter. So, she keeps coming and asking me, I keep putting her off and saying, wait, I'll be with you in a little bit. And all of a sudden I look up in our backyard and I look at the top of the little hill and I see two sticks like this with a string hanging down. And I thought, what in the world is that? So anyway, I put my book down, I go up and I look, and my daughter had built a well in our backyard with two sticks, tied a rope around it, goes down into a hole with a bucket tied on the end. And I had mixed feelings, as you could probably guess, if parents are watching, that I told her not to dig any more holes, but I was so impressed with her creativity and her imagination and her ingenuity that I couldn't yell at her. I couldn't be upset with her. Because she read about that in books, she heard that in stories. So it was like it was in her. It just found its way into her interest and her imagination, and then it came out. And it was really creative. So anyway, just a funny story of what she learned in stories. So what I found is that children, when they're read to and they see adults reading, they tend to pick up on that, and they learn to love it too. They love what their parents love. If you're a Bearcats fan or a Xavier fan, kids tend to become fans of that also. So when we read with them, they learn to love to read, which immerses them into this world of learning and continued learning, to learn about God, themselves, and the world, and to really go in and explore, this desire to explore. And I see this with my daughters already. So actually, my wife and my daughters, to share their love of stories, decided to create a blog, and it's called Room for More Books. And the blog is giving little snippets, little summaries of books, and just kind of just a little trailer, a little taste of what the book is about, with little quotes from our daughters actually, and what they thought about the book. So and my wife has kind of turned this into a ministry also, where any books that are purchased through this website, this bookshop.org, any proceeds that we receive through that, my wife then uses to buy books for prison ministry and nursing homes, which is really cool, working with, So, and there's also a priest in Cincinnati who recently said that this blog has become his go-to list when purchasing gifts for his nieces and nephews, because he just knows there'll be good stories, good books. And another website you might want to check out is Read Aloud Revival, which has largely shaped and inspired my wife's interest and her go-to list for children's literature. So both of those websites should be down below the video with the link where you can check it out. And and you can get those from your library. We get a lot of use out of our library card. And hopefully you start reading with your children. And hopefully it's not good just for your kids, but also for yourself, like it has been for me.